Good afternoon, second graders. Welcome to story time. I'm going to hop on every afternoon and read a chapter of Malcom. I am only able to record 5 minutes at a time, so it might come in a couple different videos, but we will start today by recapping what happened in the last chapter, which we read a long time ago. So the last chapter was called Snip. Let's see if I can turn this around and show you. No. Anyways, it was called Snip, and Malcom was chased out of the 4th floor by the cat. Luckily, he made it to safety. What else happened? He made it back to his cage. And, we learned that Aggie needed to get back to his heat lamp because he's cold-blooded and his body was starting to move slowly. So we will start today with chapter 9, which is called Leap, Creep, Keep. I'm going to stop this first video and start a second one with the reading. Enjoy! Malcom settled into a dull Saturday. He slept in, dozing in the sun. He accidentally ate his whole weekend's worth of kibble by noon. Then he plopped in his shredded paper for another long nap. Except for the lack of video games, his Saturday probably wasn't all that much different from most 5th graders. Finally, when the room grew dark, Malcom stirred. He pushed open the latch on his door and wandered out. To be honest, he was still kind of hoping to find something noteworthy to bring to the Midnight Academy to impress everyone. But he was also scared. After all, he'd almost been eaten by a cat the last time he ventured out. So Malcom looked around, but he kept within a dash and a leap of his cage. Malcom poked under the back counter. A stick of gum lay forgotten near the wall. He pawed at the wrapper. Watermelon Mango Blast. He took a tiny nibble. Oh, sweet nubbins. The flavor exploded in his head. No wonder the Nutters were so cheesy for gum. Malcom sank his incisors into a bigger chunk. He chewed and chewed. The flavor, magical, and the chew, it never went away. There was still an hour left before it was time to meet Aggie in the kindergarten room. Malcom returned to his table. He chomped the gum and flipped through a little more of Amelia's copy of Despero. Crumb, the mice weren't very nice critters in that story either, and the Lankies were even worse. Finally, the clock pointed to 11. By now, the gum felt and tasted like a lump of pencil eraser. He spit it out and tried to stick it to the bottom of a desk, like he had seen Kira do, but it got tangled in his stubby whiskers. Malcom swiped at them. Now it was on his fur. Gristle! How did the Nutters manage this stuff? Strings of sticky pink stretched from paw to paw. Malcom rubbed the gum off as best he could on Skylar's sweatshirt. Then he scampered out the door. He couldn't be late, not for Aggie. In the hall, everything looked bigger and darker than the night before. Every little scratch and tap of Malcom's claws echoed in the empty space. Malcom couldn't help but wonder who might be listening to him scuttle down the hall. Academy critters? Or maybe a cat with a too-tight collar? He hurried faster and sucked on a gummy whisker. Malcom trotted down the stairs to the kindergarten hall. Was it his nerves, or was this floor of the school a lot colder than the 5th grade one? He felt like the post-recess blast of air the Nutters always brought in. Room 1B, Malcom stopped. On the other side of the door, construction paper jack-o'-lanterns leered at him. Malcom could see the kindergartners still had a way to go on their cutting skills. Cool air streamed out from the sliver of space beneath the door, bringing with it a scent of a lemon cleanser. This door hung much lower than room 11's, though. There was no sneaking under here. How was he supposed to get in? Malcom nudged the door with his nose. It had worked for Aggie on his tour the night before. She had explained how one of Pete and Octavius's jobs was taping the locks of some of the doors. Oof, not this one, apparently. All Malcom ended up with was a smashed nose. He shot a look in both directions down the hall. He called out, "Aggie, I'm here!" His voice sounded thin and very unvalorous. Inside the room, he could hear fluttering, "Peep, peep, peep," the chicks. Malcom bent his head down. "Aggie," he called the space underneath the door. "Aggie, the door is locked." "Eep, creep, peep," the chicks chirped. Malcom sat back on his haunches. Maybe this was some kind of test. Maybe he needed to prove his worthiness to the academy. To prove he could figure a way in, he could almost picture Honey Bunny's smug look on the other side of the door. So how else would he get in? Above the door, like all the classrooms, there was a rectangular window that tilted out an inch or two. A transom. Malcolm remembered you called it that, Mr. Biney, when you lectured Jovan about throwing paper airplanes through it. Malcolm swallowed. It was awfully high. He had to take a step back to see the top. But he had to try. Malcolm clambered up a coat hanging in the cubby, then leaped across the wooden door trim. His claws scratched for a moment, then took hold. Seconds later, he was peering through the crack on the transom. Malcolm glanced back at the hallway and swayed. Okay, so no looking down. Malcolm wedged his nose into the window's crack and peered into the classroom. Peep, steep, leap, the chicks cheeped. Aggie, he called. No answer. He could see her cage near the window, but it was empty. Malcolm shivered. He scampered down the doorway to the other side. The chicks went crazy. Eep, steep, creep. The chicks tossed themselves at the other side of their wired cage. Uh-oh. Before I move on, pause. Tell someone at home, make a prediction. Why are the chicks freaking out? Where's Aggie? All right, back to it. You said that before, Malcolm mumbled. He scouted around a bit. Where's Aggie? Leap, creep, keep. Aggie, Malcolm called again. A strong scent of lemon cleanser, the same kind Miss Brumble used to clean desks, hung in the air. But Aggie didn't seem to be in the room. Well, maybe she and Honey Bunny were still on their way. Now what? As he made his way to the back of the room, he saw the cabinets under the sink were wide open. The contents of a jar of paste dribbled across the floor. Bits of paper and foil were stuck in it. It looked like the scrap box had been tipped over. Lettuce leaves, animal crackers, even some Jolly Ranchers were scattered about. Kindergartners sure were messy. Malcolm's stomach pinched. He had eaten all the kibble, but that was so long ago. He was practically starving by now, and he was just waiting. Malcolm stole a glance at the door. Still closed. He took a bite of lettuce. It was okay. Crispy, but a little watery. He launched himself into the animal crackers. Ah, crackers. They weren't cinnamon sugar, but still, just the right amount of satisfying crunch. But after a few, Malcolm slowed. He wasn't sure, but something wasn't right. His paws were stiff, his ear tips ached a bit. His nose, it was as cold as an ice pack in a lunch bag. That's some good literary language. That was it. That was what was wrong. Malcolm was cold. Malcolm had never been cold before. Not really, not like this. So cold that his paws couldn't quite grasp his cracker the way he needed them to. So cold that his fur had plumped all over, making him look twice as wide as he was. Malcolm didn't even know his fur could do that. Anyway, being this cold isn't good, not when you are inside a classroom. Something was wrong. Malcolm set down his cracker and took a few steps toward Aggie's cage. It was on a low table next to the long row of windows. Malcolm pulled himself up to the side of the nearby bookcase. From here, the air was even chillier, and it was no wonder. The bottom half of the window next to Aggie's cage was shattered. The freezing night air blasted in through it. Steep, creep, keep, the chicks called again. Malcolm jumped down to the table, his claws skittering a little on the wood. He tripped on something hard. A chalky white stone rattled to the floor. A cold knot, colder than the night air, grew in Malcolm's stomach. It tangled and snarled worse than a kindergartner's shoelace. What was going on here? Where was Aggie? The quietness of the building seemed to press in on Malcolm. He needed to find someone, to tell someone. Something wasn't right in room 1B. Malcolm leaped to the floor. It was a big jump, and his hind legs pushed against a stack of books. The top book, half open and tilted on the top of the pile, in a way Amelia could never tolerate, slowly slid off. Malcolm winced as it fell, cracking into the remaining shards of glass in the window. Outside, Malcolm heard the tinkle of glass hitting the pavement. Oops. On the other side of the room, Malcolm heard something else. The classroom door. Opening. Now that is some suspense to end on. Comment below, make a prediction. What do you think is going to happen next? Who's at the door? Why is there a hole in the window? Let me know your thoughts.